I want to welcome all of you here to the Valley of the Shadows of Research Methods. Today, I want to begin with doing literature review. Doing literature. By the end of this section, you should be able to learn how to select available and relevant literature. Critically review the literature so that you can write out relevant sections of your paper or your thesis. Literature review is not just summarizing, it's about arguing, providing evidence, and illustrating with examples. So the section will help you to explain how to review and write out your literature. We'll look at the following 6 things: analyzing and writing the review, structuring the review, good and bad review, defining referencing, APA referencing, okay, the in-text one, and then the bibliography one. Let's start. First one, analyzing and writing your literature. What is a literature review? You are synthesizing. Now, before you can have a synthesis, you must have a thesis and then an antithesis. So you have a thesis, then you have an antithesis. Then you bring the two together, you get a synthesis. So what you are doing is that somebody had made a thesis, another had made an antithesis. Then you put the two together, you come out with a synthesis. So you're going to make a synthesis of all the available materials, journal articles, provisions, everything, okay, that are related to the topic you are dealing with, not those unrelated to the topic. And this is where structuring the literature is important. You got to accompany that by describing, okay, and critically evaluating and comparing analysis of those that have done the work. And you got to connect it to your research question and pull out a gap in the process. So every time you analyze somebody's paper, connect it to your own and say, they looked at this, but they did not look at that. Instead of looking at this, they looked at that, but they did not look at that instead of this. That is critical literature review. Now, let's just remind ourselves of the structure of the thesis. Okay, introduction, literature, context, methodology, analysis, discussion, and conclusion. The most important thing about literature review is to know the difference between descriptive and analytical literature review. You see, descriptive writing and analytical writing are what confuses a lot of people. Descriptive is summarizing what other people have found, and here's the mistake: without saying what these findings mean for your investigation. You are not describing. Your description usually has a chronological list of who discovered what and when they did that. Finish. Analytical will synthesize the work, precisely, briefly passing judgment on what they have done. So don't ever think that anybody who has documented something in your literature is a professor, and therefore the person has it all. No. In fact, for all you know, you would have gotten something they did not have. And I've seen this many times. So you got to pull out. Your goal is to critique that work. Critique it, even if it's published in Management Science, even if it's published in Operations Research or American Economic Review. You want to critique that work, reveal the limitations, or recognize the possibility of taking a research further, detect something they haven't done, allow you to formulate and justify your aims for your investigation, critique their work. Let's take an example. Descriptive, blah, 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 blah. Green, 1975, discovered that in 1978, Black conducted experiment and discovered that. Later, Brown, 1980, illustrated this. Describe, describe, describe. But analytical, there seems to be a general agreement on the impact of, corporate social responsibility on firm performance. C. White, 1987, Brown, 1980, Black, 1978, Green, 75. However, Green sees corporate social responsibility as a consequence of performance. while black puts the two side by side. While Green's work has some limitation in the fact that its main issue is that, guys, if you document your literature with this kind of analytical frame, oh my goodness, whoever is reading will just be clapping for you. Don't just describe, critique. A descriptive writing is an example here. A study by Uche 2000 on unemployment in the banking industry in Nigeria highlighted that inflation affected the turnover of banks, which had also had an effect on salaries. Over 2,000 bank employees lost their jobs by the end of 1999. Taka, 2005, discussed that lack of capital for startup initiatives and high interest rates on loans stalled entrepreneurial ventures and contributed to unemployment or the lack of job opportunities. Now, in a recent study on unemployment in Egypt, Salia found political instability, poor governance, and lack of foreign direct investment to be the critical factors influencing unemployment. Descriptive. Nah. You got to be analytical. Let's look at this. Now, when we say chronologically, for example, if a writer views have intended to change over time, you got to make that clear. You should show clear trend. You should show patterns and trends. Let's take an example. The literature demonstrates that the key factors which contribute to unemployment in Africa have tended to change over time. In the late 1990s, researchers argued that inflation and low wages contributed to unemployment. Now, that Uche point and Benson point have been bracketed in text citation. For example, a study by Uche on unemployment in the banking industry, Nigeria, highlighted that inflation affected the turnover of banks, which had also had an effect in salary payment. Over 2,000 banks lost their jobs by the end of 1999. On the other hand, by 2004, researchers discussed the lack of capital for startup initiatives and high interest rates on loans stalled entrepreneurial ventures and contributed to unemployment or the lack of job opportunities. That was by Taco. But you see, there was on the other hand in the point to bring the point from 2000 because there's a trend that is happening. A comparative study on the SME industry in Ghana and Uganda shared similar findings. Instead of saying that Kingston, blah, 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 then you talk about what Kingston has done. No, you are now comparing. So it's a comparative study. And then you can use this to bring out to the point. Believe me, anytime you cannot even criticize somebody's work, use another person's criticism to critique that somebody's work. It's always great to do that. So you must, anytime you're writing a paper, you have to have a particular paper that yours is dancing around it. Yours is closer to it. Maybe a number of other few papers, one paper or 1 to 5 papers. That your paper comes closer. And those papers, you got to dig out limitations of them that make yours stand out. Descriptive. Descriptive will just state what has happened. It will just state what something is like. It will give the story so far. No. Analytical will identify the significance, evaluate the strengths and the weaknesses of what the thing is, and weigh one piece of information against another. You are doing critical writing. You are doing analytical writing. You are not doing descriptive. Now, descriptive will just state the order in which the thing is happening. No. Analytical will make reasons from the ordering in which they're happening. Descriptive will say how to do something. Analytical will argue a case according to evidence. Descriptive will explain what a theory says and explain how something works. And it will just mention the methodologies that have been used. Analytical will show why something is relevant or suitable. It will tell you why something will work, is the best. Critical will indicate whether something is appropriate or suitable. You are adding to the body of knowledge. You are not just taking the body of knowledge. The scripture will just say when something occurred, But Analytica will identify why the timing is important. So let's focus on analyzing and writing. There are two main stages that are involved when you are writing. One, evaluate. That means you are assessing. Evaluate the source and then analyze the source. Evaluate the source, analyze the source. Now let's look at evaluation. You have to ask questions. The moment you read that paragraph, ask your question. Is this relevant? Is this relevant? Does it tell me something I need for my paper? Is it relevant? And guys, I've seen that some students don't like to read. The best way in bettering your caliber lies in extensive reading. Some of you will just scratch the introduction, scratch. There's no, don't do that. Sometimes you got to eat the paper. I gave a paper to Ruth yesterday, and I said, Ruth, eat this paper. Eat it. Understand word for word. The last time I did a work with Samuel, after going through the work, then he realized, Doc, I've read this paper many times. I didn't know how powerful this paper is. But what he was doing is that he was reading it haphazardly. And we took it sentence by sentence, word for word, analyzing, cross-fertilizing, looking at definitions of words for him to soak in the content. So you got to know whether it's telling you something before you reject it. If not, and it is telling you something, continue. Don't accept what is written or said. So you got to put it down. You got to have your own notes you are taking whenever you are reading. And you put the author down. This author said this, but then you put a but there. You look, whenever you are doing things, you got to be putting things down. They will become useful later. You got to triangulate. You got to view an issue from different sources. Okay, so this one said they found a positive relationship. Is that what everybody has found? What are others saying? Now, how do you get that? You got to do a cross-reference of that paper. What does that mean? You put that paper in Scholar Google, go to cited by, and look at other people that have cited the paper since it was published in 2000. And then you'll see others that have published and cited that paper in 2025. And then you will look for the criticism they gave to that. And you put it down. You have your section of your Excel where you write these things down. They will become useful later. Give evidence. Provide perspectives to them to get a balanced view. And if you can't provide, look for others that are provided. So your overall evaluation will give you a sense of how, valuable or not the source is. You got to analyze. You got to critique. You got to critically examine. Now, a literature review is not about summarizing what people have done. No. Without critically describing, a component. A literature review is not just an annotated bibliography. No. You got to argue. You got to give evidence. Argue. In fact, sometimes every paper that is cited is arguable. Sometimes you do that, is great. So that is the first aspect, which is analyzing the literature review. The second is structuring the literature review. Now, this is good. And this is normally started from the beginning, so it helps you as you go further. What do I mean by this? It's a process. The whole literature review is a process. In fact, you will start, the literature review is chapter 2, but you realize that at the conclusion, you still go back to the literature. It's a process, a whole process. The literature review cut across the entire thesis. Sometimes by the time you're about to write your abstract, you have to now go back into the literature to get something. The literature has its own internal structure. So let's look at the internal structure. So let's say you're looking at the chapter 2 of your literature review. You got to give an introduction to that, a body of that, and a conclusion of that. So you got to give an opening sentence or paragraph. This section will look at both the empirical and the theoretical review of the literature related to say, corporate governance, and related to performance of firms. More specifically, okay, the agency theory, the resource-based theory, the property right theory, the asymmetric information theory will be used to debunk the idea that blah, 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 blah. Then you come to the body. The body would discuss normally the literature, in a logical, coherent way, in the order in which you have mentioned it in the introduction. And now you bring in the source. Sometimes you even have to bring a tabular taxonomy. You create a table. You know that table you created from the beginning? This is where you come, and then you say that a related literature is shown in table 7, where you have the author, the paper, or just author, okay, the method that was used, the variables that was used by the, the paper, the findings that were used, and the specific things that relate to what you are doing. You can't bring everything. Maybe your issue is to prove that you have smaller sample size, and you want to prove that there are similar studies that also have smaller sample size. So you have gathered just about 7, tabular taxonomy to prove that yours is not the only one that has small sample size. Boom, you drop it there. And then when you are finished with everything, you conclude with a paragraph that relates the literature back to the research work. Let's look at the structure. Chronology is important. Themes are important. I gave you a themes where you are looking at theoretical review and empirical review. And under the theoretical review, you may have specific theories. And under the empirical review, you may have some specific things. So maybe the empirical one is going to look at studies that have applied the subject matter. And then you look at studies that have applied it in other parts of the world. And now you look at studies that have applied it in Africa. And then maybe studies that have applied it in your country of specificity. And then maybe another section will look at methodologies that have been used structuring the literature review. It's powerful. Chronology matters. Chronology matters. Now, let's look at applying thematic analysis, okay, where you use themes to structure. So this is the work here, and then you have the thematic analysis. Thematic analysis, okay, you take particular themes in the literature. For example, in the literature review of poverty and unemployment, okay, the thematic review of the literature will be organized around topic or issues rather than on progression of time. If you look at the previous one, it was more of progression of time. For example, you are looking at the poverty and the unemployment literature. So your themes will be structure of unemployment, structure of poverty, the link between poverty and unemployment, and then mitigating poverty in the unemployed. So these are the themes in blue. Then under the first one, the structure of unemployment, you have what is unemployment, what are the causes of unemployment. Under the poverty, what is poverty, okay? What are the causes of poverty? What is education and employment and income related to poverty? And then you go step by step. You got to have a structure. Don't just haphazardly dump things, but you got to have a structure. If you cannot, your supervisor will guide you. Themes matter. Okay, thematically, okay, you got to take particular themes in the literature and work around those things. You see the picture on the right? You can't bring tomatoes at the top and then you bring another tomatoes down there. So if you look at the top, tomato, 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 tomato. Down there, you have cucumber, cucumber, cucumber. And then on the right, you have this, that. In that order, it must be grouped. It must be well arranged. Themes matter. And of course, definitions matter. Definitions matter. What is definition? Who can define definition for me? What is definition? Definition is your understanding of the components, the composition, the dimension, and the value of a concept for further modification for personalized use. So, because, for example, If I have my mobile phone in my hand and I asked you what is in my hand, you are likely to say it's a mobile phone. But the first time you saw somebody holding that mobile phone, the first time you didn't know it was a mobile phone, but the first time you saw somebody holding a mobile phone and the person uses that mobile phone to kill someone, the second time you saw someone holding a mobile phone, you saw that person use the mobile phone to hit someone. The third time you saw somebody using the mobile phone to choke somebody's neck. When you are now asked, what is that item? What would you say? Who's going to answer me? What will you say? Remember, I said that I fly until you stop me. What would you say?
It's a weapon.
It's a weapon. It's a weapon. So the definition has changed. Definitions matter. What you can define, you can modify. What you cannot define, it will overwhelm you. Definitions matter. Definitions matter. If someone is holding a walking stick, for example, let's take slap. Suppose I tell you to define slap. The way you would define slap is different if you have read what slap is in a book. That will also be different if you have seen somebody being slapped before. That will be different if you have done slapping yourself before. And that will be different if you yourself has been slapped. If you have been slapped before, the way you would define slapping is different from the slapping you read in the book. Definitions matter. And so you got to be precise and concise anytime you are going through the structuring of the literature. Okay. There must be some methodological arrangement. The focus is on the methods of the researcher. So if you're looking at methodological arrangement, okay, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, you got to bring quantitative points instead of qualitative. If you are doing quantitative, be very precise about whether they have used random forest. Be clear with that. If they have used linear regression, lasso regression, elastic net regression, ridge regression, be clear with that. If it is decision tree, support vector machines, be clear, be precise with that. If you want to look at regions, geography, developing, rural and urban, whatever you want to do it methodologically. Be precise and concise. For example, you cannot talk about macro factors when you have not spoken about, industry factors. First, you talk about firm-specific factors before you go to industry factors, before you go to macro factors. They are in that order. Okay? If you are dealing with individual, you have to talk about individual-specific factors before you go to firm-specific factors, before you go to city-specific factors, before you go to country-specific factors. There is an order in which you approach the literature. And the marker knows this. So the marker is looking to penalize you in the way you structure the literature. So that is the second part. The next part we want to look at is good and bad literature review. Oh my goodness, you are going to just enjoy this. What is a bad literature review? This is a bad one. On the bottom right, you see the child is even shocked. It's bad. No, this one is not bad. It's bad. It's bad. Sexual harassment has many consequences. Adams, Corte, and Paget found that some women students said they avoided taking a class or working with certain professors because of the risks of harassment. They also found that men and women students reacted differently. Benson and Thompson study in social problems 1982 list many problems created by sexual harassment. In their excellent book, the Professor Ditch and Werner, 1990, give a long list of difficulties that victims have suffered. If you read this work, you might not even think that this is a bad literature review. Does it click to you that is bad? Does it show in any way that is bad? Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah, it might not look like. But man, this is bad. It's not bad, it's bad. Emmanuel says not yet. Not yet. Now let's see. And you will understand. You see, the way you structure the literature and the way you argue, the same thing. Look at it. The victims of sexual harassment suffer a range of consequences, from lowered self-esteem and loss of self-confidence to withdrawal from social interaction, change career goals, and depression. All put together. But look at the way this guy has cited it. Adams, Corte and Pigeon, 1983. Next one, Benson and Thompson, 1982. Dutch, blah, blah, blah. Do you see the thing? So sometimes a student will write the whole thing plenty. He says that the thing is getting too much. Oh, the number of words I'm supposed to have is getting too many. It's because you have written a bad literature review like this. Do you realize that this one and this next one, this good one is good? So after making those points, which have been made by all these people, then you say, for example, just take one. For example, Adam noted that 13% of women students said they avoided taking a class or working with certain professors because of the risks of harassment. Just one example. Instead of giving all the examples, Adam said that, then you come to, they also found that before you come to, in the book by social problems, before you come to Deutsche Wiener, that is the bad. This is a good one. Isaac, does it now make sense of why the previous one was bad?
Yes, it does. But earlier on, you indicated that we could, take the individual perspectives from the various books and, contrast it like, but
Oh, we haven't come to that one. You will still get that. But in any case, when you look at this, was there any contraction that he was doing? Was he critiquing the
no, he
analysis?
didn't. He
There
just
wasn't.
listed them.
He's just listing them. So if you're listing them, summarize them and then give one example. But he was giving
Okay,
multiple
okay.
examples, which was not
The same.
necessary.
Okay.
So it's very important to understand what is required. Let's look at the next one, which is referencing. Referencing. Of course, as we are talking, referencing was singing some songs in between. We're singing some references. But hey, this is the meat of the work. When you see, I'll show you a paper that we submitted, and then we had to do a quick review about the work and then resubmit it to the company. We had to cut down a whole lot of things because we realized that we're wasting our time. We were wasting a lot of our time. And when you are wasting your time, the reason why you will be wasting time is because you are talking too much. So sometimes you got to realize that you are talking too much and just give citation. So instead of saying A, B, C, D, then you talk about what A did, B did, C did, E did. You can just summarize and put all of them in one citation. And in that citation, you have maybe 12 different citations, in-text citations. Instead of picking the one by one, so that you can cut down and still without, because you are telling the reader to go and check those ones if he wants. All right. Let's look at the reference. The first aspect of referencing is defining the literature referencing. What is citation? What is citation? Now, I want to ask you guys, in your view, why do you think citation is important? I'll pick anybody. So if you like, raise your hand rather so that I don't pick you. Why do you think citation is important? Ben is squashy. Why is citation important? Ben is squashy.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So citation is important to be able to reference the whatever you've quoted or whatever you said in your research.
Okay. Whatever you've quoted or whatever you've referenced in your research. Ama,
yes.
Why is citation important?
Prof, please, it's important because it's a form of an acknowledgement to the author of the paper or the person we are referencing.
Okay, good. Now, David Lamte, what do you think is the difference between in-text citation and bibliography? David.
So please come again.
What's the difference between in-text citation and bibliography? Eves has written the recognition or acknowledge the contribution of others in the body of knowledge. Excellent. Priscilla said to avoid plagiarism. That is very, very true. Oh, not just plagiarism, but also academic scholarship. Yes, David, what do you have to say? You made me repeat myself, so tell me. David, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
Well, talk to me.
Sorry, I had a small problem with my microphone. Sorry. All right. So for the citation, we are kind of putting our references in a literature review. But a bibliography, with a bibliography, we put our referencing at the end of our paper. It provides full details of all sources that you consulted as you were conducting your research.
Okay, good. Good. So now let's look at how you define the referencing of the literature. How do you define it? If you provide evidence for an argument and perspective that has been presented in the literature writer, that is referencing. You are providing evidence, either in the article or long essay or report, whatever you're doing, you are providing evidence. Now, the references provided within the text or the body of the text is what we consider as referencing. But also you have the compiled references at the end of the text. Now, so watch the two words. We say references. So when you use the word reference, it refers to both the in-text one and then the bibliography one. I want to repeat that. Did you reference? I'm talking about both in-text and the bottom. That's the, did you reference? It's both in-text and then the biblio. Now, you can do the bibliography or the references at the bottom, which we call the bibliography. I normally like to use the bibliography so that I don't say at the bottom. When you provide a bibliography, some could provide a bibliography without putting it in the in-text. Some will also do the in-text without putting it at the bottom or the biblio. But when we say reference, is both. Have you referenced? Is both. So you don't ask, oh, what do you mean by have I referenced? You mean have I put it in the in-text? No, I mean both. Have you put it in the in-text in addition to putting it at the bottom? Referencing is critical. In fact, one of them, let me give you a quick advice. Do so many references in your work. That's the first advice I want to give you. Be so much let your work be inundated with so many references that the reader becomes angry. It's better. It's better than making statements. And please note the references is according to sentences, not according to paragraph. So sometimes a student will make a statement and make a second statement and make a third statement and make a fourth statement before he brings the referencing. Then the person, you say, why is your reference for the first statement? He says, so when you go to the third one, is there? No. You've got to have it, all of it. Every sentence. Be used. Start your career, start your writing career with that ability to reference. You see, some people think that when you're referencing, it shows that you are not good. You are not good. You are always citing other people's work. In fact, it's rather the opposite. When you're referencing a lot of people, it shows you are good. So do not send first sentence, no reference, second sentence, no reference, or first sentence, a reference, but second, no reference. In fact, your first 10 sentences, fill it with references. I'm telling you, you are showing academic maturity from the beginning. As you grow to become an excellent, recognized, knowledgeable body, person on the body of knowledge, you can make sentences without adding references because people would have known you to be an expert in the area. So take note and be used to that. Yes, Ted.
Doc, my question is, supposing you have a string of sentences authored by the same author, and then
your line is off. Is he still around? Can you guys hear me? Or I cannot hear him.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I think he's off. But if I should get his point, the point is that, you have the same person talking. So what you should do is that don't have that same person then talking. Have another person come in and cite that second person. And have another person come in again and cite before you bring this other person. Because in your mind, you citing the person first sentence, the same person second sentence, the same person third sentence, you feel awkward. You feel a bit awkward citing the same person. But you have to cite. You have to cite. Else, bring another person into the picture before you go back to that person. Because you are copying the person too much. And you don't want us to know that you're copying the person by citing. And so you got to stop copying, or you bring another person. That's it. You got to add your own voice instead of trying to, copy the person so much. And because people cannot copy them, they paraphrase. Please remember, even if you paraphrase, you use ChatGPT or DeepSeek or anything to paraphrase the thing, it is still not yours. It's still not yours. You still have to cite. It is idea you are citing, is not the verbatim. As for the verbatim, you have to even quote and add the page number. Yes, Ted, are you back?
Yes, sorry, my internet just went off. Apologies.
Okay.
But please, I didn't get what your answer to the question.
So I'm saying that, yes, you have to bring that same person over and over and over again after every sentence. Otherwise, go look for another person's work and come and cite it in before you bring this person, if the person's name is appearing too much for you.
Oh, okay, right.
Yes. Other than that, you must bring that person's name appearing too much. This is an essay you're writing. This is a thesis you're writing. And so you got to get used to bringing the name of the person again and again and again, if it is not yours.
Very well. Very well. Thank you.
Now, let's look at within the text. This is very critical, what we're about to look at. This is within the text. In the late 1990s, researchers argued that inflation and low wages contributed to unemployment. Finished. You see the word he said, researchers argued. Now, if I see a word like date, numbers, several authors, many people, a number of studies, a number of researchers, a number of this, a number of that, many, significant number, many. If I see those things, I'm expecting many references as well. And a good reviewer will be expecting many references to say that a number of studies have examined the impact of, this and that. Oh, you need a lot of references. So even though the ones I've highlighted here, they are even smaller. A comparative study by Kinsey on the SME industry in Ghana and Uganda shared similar findings on the effect of startup capital and interest loans on entrepreneurship and unemployment. Now, that statement is being cited. So watch it. The citation is happening every sentence here. Watch it carefully. The first sentence was cited. The second sentence, cited. The third sentence, which starts with, in a recent study on unemployment in Egypt, Salia found political instability, poor governance, and lack of foreign direct investment to be the critical factors influencing unemployment. Cited. Now, if that last one was written, and it was written from the perspective of this Kinston 2006 guy, you have to cite Kinston 2006 again, which is back to the question that Ted asked. You have to cite that guy again, and again, and again. Sentence, within text. Now, that is in-text citation, and this is the bibliography or the referencing list. So because you've cited those people, watch that. You got to bring them down. So you have to write the citations, the referencing for each person and then number them. Now we'll come back to this deeply on what goes, which ones are italicized, which ones are not italicized, which ones are dotted, which ones are not dotted, and things like that. But I want you to check something here. This is daily graphic, and the page number has been given. The date for the daily graphic has been written. So you are very, very clear with that. Okay? But a typo has been made by this person for not numbering the Bezier one as number 2. The person has gone to rather do the Bezier one without numbering it. So that is a mistake there. Okay. Sometimes somebody will go through your work and just by seeing this, you start deducting marks. Leave those tone and 10. And that is why you got to use a referencing tool, which I'll talk about towards the end, like EndNote and Zotero and so forth. I'll talk about that again. Okay, so this is the referencing. Now let's look at the types of referencing. This is key. The popular ones are Harvard and APA referencing. The current APA referencing is the 7th American Psychological Association. That is the one that you use. In my Word document, it has been integrated into it. If you can, yours too, you can do the same thing. But the other ones, the Chicago, the AMA one, American Medical Association, then the Council of Science Editors. If you want the list, I've provided a link here for you to look at. But hey, you guys are going to use these two, one of them. Harvard style, Harvard style, Harvard style, Harvard style. Most people. Now, so I've given you the link for the Harvard style one, and then also for the APA one, so that you can have a look at each one of them. These are the popular styles for students to use. Now, what do we mean that the way you organize it, bolding some of them, italicizing some of them, these are styles that are used. The organization, which one comes first? The page number, the volume number, the issue number. The page number, the volume number, the issue number. So everyone has a style, and you are to stick to this style. Okay. So let's start with the APA referencing style. In text, I want you to keep calm, and use the upper style. Keep calm. I want you to pay attention here, please, guys. In text. Now, the first one you're going to learn is parenthetical citation, where you have twin transition points. So you have one person who has made a statement, one person, and so you say Ohina Sare, and then you bring a comma, and then you write the year the paper was written, and you close the bracket. This is before you bring the Ohina Sare 2024, you have already spoken about what Ohina Sare has said. You indicate what he has said, or you paraphrase what he has said, and then you put him in a bracket. Finish. However, suppose you want to indicate there's a typo here. This first bracket shouldn't come. Okay. This first bracket shouldn't come. This one. Suppose you want to rather talk about something Ohene Asare has said. Not that you have said something about what Ohene Asare has said, but you want to bring Ohene Asare saying the thing first. It's a narrative citation, it's not parenthetical citation. So in that case, you say that Ohene Asare, you could have said Ohene Asare 2024 said, but here I want to indicate that Ohene Asare wrote that paper with other people. So it's Ohene Asare et al. 2025. But watch this. After this et al, there's a dot. 2025 indicated or propounded the theory of multidirectional efficiency. And then you can now discontinue the sentence. So watch when Ohene Asare is alone and when Ohene Asare did it together with other people. Also note the parenthetical citation, where you make the statement before you bracket. In fact, normally that one is easier. It's better than to actually say the person said that. If you want to put that, you have to move the person out of the bracket. But anytime you use the software will bring, when you first input the citation, the software will bracket the name. So if you want to use this second approach, then you would have to go back and tell the software to bring author's name first and bracket the year. So you are adding more work to your work. So sometimes I choose to want to make the statement and then you rather put the people in the bracket. It's an easy one. Now, if it is a single author, that's the first one we just did here. Then you have Ohene Asare 2020 with a comma. That is when you are using the parenthetical. Now, if it is a narrative, it's the same thing. If there are two authors, then you say Edu and Agozi 2024. Now you bring the bracket, you bring the two of them in a bracket because you have the parenthetical. But when you are narrating, you bring the two of them out of the bracket. So the narrative, you bring the person out, but you put a year in the bracket. The parenthetical, you put both the person and the year in the bracket. When there are three authors, then et al. Comes into the picture and others. And the same thing here, okay, you have that. Now take note, I did mention that you bring a full stop, but you can bring a full stop and also bring a comma. Okay, you can also bring a comma after the full stop in the bracket. But outside the bracket, it makes sense to bring just the full stop. Take note. If you don't understand that, let me repeat it. Okay. Because here you can see that inside the bracket, you have the full stop and a comma. But outside the bracket, you don't have the full stop and the comma in the narrative case. In the narrative case, you have just the full stop and it. The last one, okay, is where you have a company. So you say Imani. You bring a comma after the Imani if you are doing the parenthetical. But if you are narrating, you bring the Imani and put the year in the bracket. You don't bring the comma. No comma here. So learn and mature and master how you do these in-text citations. I'm telling you, these mistakes keep coming all the time. Even though I've told you, some of you are likely to make this mistake. So it's very important to proofread and proofread. Sometimes you have to give your work to your peer, colleague. Then you also take his or her work. Then each one of you will read the other's own. Patience.
Yeah.
Patience. Your hand is up.
Yeah, no, I wanted to, I want you to kindly explain again how you are able to detect when to use the parenthetical and the narrative citation.
So the parenthetical and the narrative is the same thing you want to say, but you choose that I want to make a statement, but that statement is not from me. It is from someone, but I want to say it in a way as if I am the one saying it, but then I want to acknowledge the person. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that You are writing a paper and you have seen a paper that was written by Ohene Asare in 2012, and banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. And so you indicate that banking efficiency has been written, or there has been a number of discussion on banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. There has been a number of discussions in Ghana regarding banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. That's it. Okay. There has been Ghanaian study on banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. There has been Ghanaian study on banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. After stating that statement, you put into bracket Ohene Asare, and then you bracket it. But that same thing, you want to bring the Ohene Asare out and then put a year. So you will start by saying that Ohene Asare actually documented an evidence of banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility. Ohene Asare documented an evidence, or Ohene Asare has studied the banking efficiency under corporate social responsibility in Ghana. Ohene Asare has studied the banking efficiency. So you see, you made a statement, and then after making the statement, in the process of making the statement, you mentioned the name of the person. By saying Ohene Asare, you would have written Ohene Asare and then you put into bracket the 2012 paper. So that is the narrative. The narrative is when you are saying that the person has done something. But then the parenthetical is when you say that the thing has been done. So one is like you are narrating, and the other is like you are reporting. Is it making a bit of sense to you? So you can say that the thing has been done. And you can also say that the person has done the thing. Isn't it? To say the person has done the thing, then you are talking about the narrative. But to say that the thing has been done by the person, then you are talking more about the parenthetical. So you can say that the thing has been done, and then you can put into brackets who did that. Patience, are you with me? That is how.
Yes, Doc. Yes, Doc. Okay. I get it now. It's clear.
Now, Eve says, do you mean that narrative citations come at the end of the sentence and the parenthetical at the end of the sentence? Oh, you're asking the beginning of the sentence. Okay. Exactly. So when you look at parenthetical, you're talking about the citation. So the parenthetical, the citation comes at the end. Now, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the narrative, it must come at the beginning. Most of the time, it can come at the beginning. Okay? For example, Ohene Asare has indicated blah, blah, blah. It can come at the beginning. But you can say that the distinction between corporate social responsibility and banking efficiency has been studied by Ohene Asare. That means it's still coming at the end, but then the bracket is still covering only the year. So the narrative can come at the beginning or at the end, depending on, you can say that the boy killed the cat. The boy, then you cite the year. The boy, or Kofi killed the cat. Kofi 2025 killed the cat. Or you can say that the cat was killed by Kofi. You still do Kofi, and then you put 2025 into bracket. So the narrative can come at the beginning, it can come at the end. But then, when you're talking about the parenthetical, it will come, it has to come at the end. It has to be at the end. And Eves, I hope I've been able to address that question of yours. Good, excellent. Now, Michael says, how do you reference an industry report? We'll come to that. We'll come to how you reference an industry report very soon. Okay. So let's look at quotation. So these are students who are struggling. It's like every sentence they have read in the paper is good. So they want to kind of quote the paper. Now, in that case, don't go too long. Okay, don't go beyond 40 words. Because once you start going beyond 40 words, you are quoting too much. Massa, like you know, you don't want. So don't go beyond 40 words. And you got to integrate into the text and place within the quotation mark. So when you are quoting, you got to bring quotation mark. I'll give you 2 examples here. But you got to bring the name of the author, the year, the number of page. This is important. The number of pages is normally omitted. But you cannot do quotation by excluding. You can't. Don't exclude the number of pages. And in fact, the way you even write the number of pages matter. The way you write it is important. The quote can be located, should be put in brackets directly after the quote. So there's an example here. Knowledge, intensity, and dispersion. Knowledge may be viewed as a transaction or transaction characteristic, which can influence the achievement of transaction benefit. This statement was said by Boateng, 2011, page 59. Now, watch it carefully that you bring the quotation, the closing quotation mark at the end of the sentence. The opening quotation mark is at the beginning of the sentence, but the citation is not part of the quotation. I've seen students make that mistake. The citation is all outside the bracket, the quoted, the double apostrophe is outside it. So the quotation mark, it is encircling the words and not the author. And when you come to the author, you have to now write the name of the author. You bring a comma, if it is one person, the same usual approach. Then you bring the year. And then after the year, you bring a comma again. And then the page number. Every document has a page number. You do the page number. But you have to type this. Now, listen. If you are doing in-text citation and you're using a referencing software, you have to go and manually edit the thing. And then allow the referencing software to ease this thing through, just because you are forcing this thing into the web. And you have to bring P for the page, and then you now indicate the page number. It's very important you learn this quotation. And like we said, these words should not be more than 40 words. Next one. It has been argued by Salia, and again, Salia, okay, and Salia, page number 5 has been instituted. That, and this is all lifting the work of Salia from this quotation to that quotation. Remember that there is a full stop after the quotation, not full stop then before you do the quotation. This is very important. Some people rather do the quotation, will bring the full stop first, and then after that you will do the quotation. So it's like the full stop is inside the quotation. No, the full stop is outside the quotation. Very, very petty things, but you want to pay attention to them. Okay. Next. So that is how you do the quotation analysis. What about in text? And when you have double people, we have the same person. Okay? The person has written 2 papers, 3 papers, 4 papers in the same year, and you want to cite some of them. Okay? So in this case, we have to distinguish which paper you are talking about. This is called in text, several publications in the same year by the same author. Okay. Sometimes it's by the same author, sometimes it's by the same group of authors. So you may have maybe Ohinasare and Texan, Ohinasare and Texan, Ohinasare and Texan. In that case, this is how you do it. Statistics from the International Telecommunication Union tend to suggest that mobile phone subscribers currently constitute 60% of the world population. This is the ITU, International Telecommunication Union. So you give this quotation, this in-text citation, but it is the year. Now, if you are using referencing software, you don't need to worry yourself. The referencing software will automatically, at first, the referencing software will write ITU, 2008. They will put it in bracket, just like this. But the moment you bring the second one, which is not the same document, but a different document, but in the same year, and then you insert the citation, the referencing software will automatically make this one A, and it will make this second one B. It will do that automatically for you. That is why it's always advisable to use referencing software instead of you trying to do the thing yourself. I see students will finish and then they will go down to the bottom and start tapping the whole thing themselves. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let the referencing software take care of it. Some of these referencing softwares are even free. So you will see that it will number. If this ITU made a statement and you took that document for the third time in the same year, it will do C, 2008 C for you. So please take note of that. It's very, very useful. Eve says, what if the author wrote several papers in the same year, but I have to cite only one in my work? If you have to cite only one in your work, you will only have what I wrote here. You will not have the A, B, C. Okay. The A becomes useful only when there is a B. If there is no B, you don't need to add A to it. Well, the software will not even do that for you. Okay. So you just do that first one and ignore the rest. Good. Let's look at the next one. The next is within the text again, quoting from secondary sources. Okay, like you are quoting from somebody's work, but you are quoting somebody who has quoted from somebody's work. It's very, very funny. Like the person you are quoting from is himself also quoted from somebody. When you are using secondary sources, the writer must name the source as well as give the secondary source code. So let's give an example. The nature of business activities of micro, small enterprise may determine the difference in the type of ICTs owned or accessed and used by micro, small enterprise. This statement was actually a statement that was by Abor. Okay, the first person to deal with this statement is by Abor.
Okay.
Roland Walker.
I need
Roland Walker.
100 citizens. I want to buy the juice box.
Roland Walker. Can somebody call this guy for me? He's interrupting all of us. He's still unmuted. Okay. Now, so this first person who made that statement was Abor. But instead of you going directly to Abor to get the quote, you didn't. You rather read the paper by Boateng and Boateng. And so you saw the Boateng and Boateng quoting something they have spotted from Abor. If you had gone to Abor, you would have directly quoted also from Abor. But you didn't get Abor paper. So you took the statement from Boateng, but Boateng himself, Boateng and Boateng themselves actually got it from Abor. Well, if you still want to go by what Boateng and Boateng have said, and you've not gone to read the paper by Abor, you got to say that this is from Boateng and Boateng, but they actually quoted, in Abor, okay, than this page. Okay, so you got to actually indicate who is the one you are quoting from, and then where is the source of the quote as well. So you have to have the actual source and the secondary source. And that is an example of that. This is the same thing, okay, which is not in a quote. So this one will have a page number, but this one actually doesn't have a page number. So you say that Boateng, cited in Abor. So note the difference. The difference between this first one and this second one is that this first one has a double quotation. It's a quotation, and that is why it has a page number. But this second one has no quotation, so there's no page number. Yes, Kingsford.
Yeah, Doc, I want a bit of clarity. So in this example, I'm wondering why the Boateng who is quoting from Abor has a year that is later than Abbo's year. I was thinking the recent person who is quoting the initial one will have a year earlier than the original writer.
No, the statement is from Boateng. The statement you are seeing here is from Boateng and Boateng. But you couldn't get it from Boateng and Boateng. You rather got it from Abbo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Abbo is the document you spotted the work. But Abbo wasn't the one who originally made a statement. The statement was made by Boateng and Boateng. And then you got it from Abbo. So the one that is carrying the page number, that is where you got it from. Or the one that you say cited in, okay? That is the one that you got it from. The one that you say cited in, or the one that is having the page number. That is where your eyes saw the document. But where your eyes did not see is the one that this person's one was copying from.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I hope you get it. So the source material is Boateng and Boateng, but you couldn't get that paper. This happens once in a blue moon. To be honest, don't use this approach. It's not a very nice thing to pursue. But if you try as hard as you can and you still don't get the Boateng and Boateng paper, then you have no choice than to do the above. But you got to go down deep and get the paper. Normally, that's what I would advise. So that you would have read the original paper and do the citation directly from there. Okay. Now, multiple authors. Okay. For publications with multiple authors, refer to several times. 2 authors. Now you have 2 authors, you have to use the surname both authors each time the reference is quoted. Okay, you're using, watch the words. So you can use Jackson and Gallis with the word "and," or you can use Jackson and Gallis with the symbol "and." Now, what is the difference between the first one here and the second one here, apart from the symbol "and"? You can tell me. What is the difference between this one and that one, apart from the "and," which I've spoken about? What is the difference? Don't type. Don't type. No, it's not a comma. It's not a comma. The difference is that when you look at the first one is the parenthetical and one is the narrative. If you check, which one is a parenthetical? Which one is a parenthetical and which one is a narrative? You see which one? Yeah, Teddy.
The second one is the parenthetical.
Yeah.
The first one is the narrative.
Exactly. Exactly. So you got to know these things very, very carefully. They'll keep appearing, and yet you have to know. Okay. Now, let's go to the multiple authors here. Okay. So sometimes you can have 3, 4, 5, 6 authors. Okay. And so you have to follow it by a tab. Now, you only have to mention the name of the first author, the lead author. Sometimes some people decide that the lead author should be in alphabetical order. So sometimes the person whose name appears first is actually not the lead author. That person happens to be fortunate that his or her surname starts with A. So they use his name first. So I always wish that my surname sometimes is Asari instead of Ainasari, because that way mine would have come first. But the corresponding author might be the key person. Okay. So you have an example here, Jackson et al., 2009, and then Jackson et al., 2019. You can see that the difference is that one is parenthetical, one is narrative. The parenthetical will have a comma after the et al. The narrative will have only a full stop, not a full stop and a comma. So take note of that. Okay. So you can have a multiple authors example here. Okay. The findings show that in rural contexts, women are more likely to share their mobile phones than men. Men in rural contexts intimated that they don't share their mobile unless in the case of emergencies. And you can see that Jackson et al. Indicated that. Palin posited that. Okay? So this again, this statement of Palin posited that this is a narrative. Both men and women in urban context tend to share similar perspectives as men in blah, blah, blah. It suggests that shared access among micro, small enterprises is more likely to be prevalent in context or situations where physical and economic access barriers are a concern. Now, once again, you have Jackson et al. 2008. Now, this was a typo. Check it, the first one, because there shouldn't be a comma after the Jackson. And then the final sentence says future studies may test and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, what if there is no author to the work? Yeah. Sometimes a source will have no author, or if the author is anonymous. In that case, the writer must give the title's first word and the year. So when you go, you should just write it like this. Okay, so you give the title, Corporate Social Responsibility Reportage on website in Ghana, blah, 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 blah. So there is no author's name. So this is how you write it, United Nations 1948. Okay. If it is an institution, I think some few minutes ago, one guy said, what if it's an industry? If it is an industry or an institution document, you indicate the industry and write the year. United Nations, I've used that before. European Economic Commission, I've used that before. Okay, the World Bank, I've used that before. Amanda.
Doc, please, so with the example where is the author is anonymous, how do you reference it?
Okay, so you want to indicate the writer in the references. This is what I've given you here in the reference. But in the actual work, you can pick any of these words and use it. Okay, so you have to pick the same thing, the whole of the title, if that is what the reportage is about. So corporate social responsibility. So let's say that you are doing in-text citation of this document. Okay. You just can choose the entire sentence of the title of the document, and then you use that. So the document title, you have the document, but you don't have the author. Okay. So you say corporate social responsibility reportage on bank website in Ghana. You just put that there. Put that in the document. But it's advisable not to put the whole of that in a form of narrative. It's not nice. It's rather better to put it in a parenthetical, citation format. I'm sure you know what I mean by not in a narrative format. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I mean. Okay. Now, where you have a missing date, in the case of a missing date, just write no date. So if it is Smith, you write Smith, comma, N.D. dot, which means there's no date. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. If you have no date, you have no date. And so you put that there, and then you can answer. Now, some of these, you have to do it by yourself. Like you have to manually put it into the software so that when you are, you are editing the Word document, the referencing will automatically update. When you're updating it, it will bring it exactly the way you want it. So you have to write it. So when you go to the date section, you will write N.D. so that when it is bringing the date, that is what it's going to bring. The software will bring that for you. Okay. The last thing is the referencing list itself, what I call the bibliography. The bibliography itself. Okay, so Eve says, what is advisable in case there is no publisher? In case there is no publisher, and again, which one are you talking about? Publisher for a book, I want to believe. If there's no publisher for a book, how was the thing then published? Okay. If there's no publisher for a book and you think that there's no publisher, yeah, if there's no publisher, why are you reading the book that has no publisher? There must be source of where you're getting it. There must be somewhere. Get a point. there must be somewhere, that's somewhere, it must be a government parastatal, somewhere that you got it. That must be the publisher. Maybe not the exact publisher, but that person must be the source of where you got it. So if it is a government institution, you write it. If it is the central bank, you write it. If it is a person who is a publisher, who is a publishing company, if you still search and there's no publisher, just write no publisher. But I find it quite difficult to agree that there will be no publisher when the thing is available. All right. So, referencing, biblio. That's the last thing. If you want to produce a referencing list, remember to indent. This indent, I'll come back to, is very crucial. Indent on the second and subsequent lines. The first line, fine. But the second line, push it to the right. That is indent. Push the thing a little bit to the right. I'll give you an example. Also, make sure they are in alphabetical order. All of these things, you don't need to worry yourself if you are using a referencing software. It will do everything for you. I'm going to show you an example of mine. It will do everything for you. When you don't have a referencing software, that is when you hardly even will look at referencing list, the biblio, because the software will do everything for you, organize it, everything. So the most important thing is you got to make sure that you yourself, just go back. You got to make sure that you yourself, you are using the referencing software. Use end before the last author if there is 2 to 7 authors. We've mentioned that. Use italics for the title name. The software will do it for you if you are doing it. Use indent on the second sentence to start the reference in a new page. So if you want to generate the reference, you have to go to the new page and then do it. Now, if you forget, after you've written your entire document, go and space, so that the reference title will come to the new page. It's easy to do that. I'll show you an example pretty soon. Now, if it is a book, the surname of the author will come first, the initials will come second, the year, the title of the book, the edition, the place, and the publisher. It's a clear example. Okay? It's a clear example. So you have the author. Remember, the surname, there's a comma, then the initials of the first name or middle names. If there are more middle names, you add initials of them. And then you write the year. Then the year is documented here, and then the title, the book title. Then the edition. If it's second edition, you indicate that it's second edition. Then you indicate the place it was written, New York or Texas or whatever, Englewood Cliffs. And then the publisher, Princeton Hall. You indicate that. These are normally when you are doing it yourself, like I said. But the referencing software would have organized all of this for you. If it is an anthology, book with titles, okay, the same thing. You can see clearly that you have an article inside. This means that the article itself has been written inside this book. So you have the article, which is Pharmacology and Drug Management in the Elderly. This was published in this book, okay? And then the book was edited by P.S. Timiras. The title of the book was that, the edition, and then the page in which this very article was located is there. Then you have the place and then the publisher. So we sometimes call it book chapter or article in books. Okay? That is an example of that. The next one is the real one, the one we all use, journal. Now, like I said, if you're using the software will automatically bring the DOI reference for you. Guys, you have to use the software because if you're going to do all of this by yourself, you're going to struggle. So use the software. Okay, after you've gone through the name, the year, the title, okay, then the name of the journal, Third World Quarterly. This will always have to be italicized according to the Harvard Reference Style or the APA style. The APA style will italize this. Then it will give the volume number, the issue number, then the page number. The issue number, the volume number, the page number. And then it will give the DOI link. This is the website where the person can click automatically. You see this one, the exact DOI was not given. But if you use the exporting referencing approach, it will add the link. So somebody can look at your work and then immediately click the link, and then we'll show you the link for that. Now, whilst I'm talking, I'm trying to open a document for you where I have done, where I have done an example of all of this, and I'll show you that very soon, of a paper in International Journal of Economics. Okay, so that's it. Then we go to the next one, web page. This is important, newspapers. In newspapers, this is how you do it. Appear, 2014, 1st February, roast plantain business thrives. Then if it is daily graphic, you write daily graphic page number. That's where the article is. This web page, the same thing. If it is a web page, let me clear this. If it is a web page, you write the name of the author, okay, then the initials, of course, then the year, then the title in italics. It's not like that with journal. The title here is in italics. And then you have the date you retrieve. So you write the date you took the article. So if you retrieve the article on 23rd of June, 2013, you indicate from where. Okay. Now you indicate the source. That's where you put in the URL of the website. I always say that it's okay to do that, but do not be used to doing that, and especially Wikipedia, never. Okay. Get used to getting proper sources instead of sticking too much on website. It's not something that you want to do more. But some particular research might require that you use a website. That is allowed. Okay. Then you have web pages with no authors. That's a similar one like what we did. So you just write the title and then move on with the year and then the retriever. Okay. Now, when you are done, this is entire bibliography. When we were talking about the indent, if you were doing it yourself, you see, after this first one, the second line of this, the second line here has been pushed to the right. That's what we mean by indent. The second line has been pushed to the right. But the software will do all of that for you. Even this one, because it's human done, it wasn't done properly. The software will do all of this nicely like here. See, if you look at this one, it did it for this part here, but it didn't do for the future part. This one should have been pushed to the right, but it wasn't. But this is the correct one, where everything in the second and third and fourth line have all been pushed to the right. Okay. So you have that. Now, these are the referencing softwares I've got for you. You should use one of them. I use EndNote. That's what I use. In all my publications, I use EndNote. And it's really good. But you have to pay. I paid for mine. So that is it. If you can't afford, look for Zotero. And I know there is another one, which is Mendeley, which you can look at. Okay? So there are several ones that you can get free ones. Okay? But any of them will work very nicely. When you get one, it's nice to stick with it and then you go with it. When you have it, Word document also has its own one that you can play with. And you can see that I've given you a picture of that, which you can play with as well. Now I want to take you to this document, okay, and show you how we have included the work. Now, first of all, I want to show you something at the top of the document. Okay? So this is a document. And I want you to just look at the introduction of the document. I want to share with you what I meant by importance of citation. We are expert in this. Those of us who wrote this, we are very much expert in this. And yet, look at it. Corporate philanthropy. This is a very quantitative work that we have done. Corporate philanthropy, which is different from CSR, is just a microcosm of CSR, has gained prominence as a strategic tool for firms to enhance legitimacy, reputation, and stakeholder relations. This single statement we We have cited a paper, all of them are in 4-star journals. We have cited a paper, 2 papers, just for that statement. Defined as voluntary contributions to social issues, we have signed a paper. Corporate philanthropy, which is acronym for this one, CP, is increasingly linked to long-term benefits, such as improved performance. And we have cited that. Just for improved performance, then risk mitigation, we have cited that. However, the next sentence, while prior research has examined corporate philanthropy through governance, cited, political motives, cited, and institutional pressures, cited. The role, yes, Amanda.
Doc, please, the citation for Godfrey 2005, is it just citing and risk mitigation?
Yeah,
Or it's
just
also
citing
with
that one alone, yes. Only risk mitigation.
Is there a need to cite?
Is that what?
Because it's not a long, I want to, it's not such a long statement. It's just, so I just want to understand
yes,
why
because
that side was
what we are
cited.
saying is that this topic has been connected to several things. And one of the things it's been connected to is firm performance here. It has also been connected to, so firm performance, I'm giving evidence of people who have connected corporate philanthropy here to firm performance. And then it has also been connected to risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is a whole new thing, different from firm performance. Now, I could have said that it has long been connected to improved firm performance and risk mitigation. And then I would have put the 2 references together, isn't it? I would have combined the 2. The Guy Pearce and then the Godfrey one. But then I'm separating them to let the reader know that you know who did what. It's a very, very peculiar, detailed way of citing to read. It is a very tough journal to let them recognize the way you are well read with a thing. In fact, the same thing was done here. For example, prior research have examined corporate philanthropy through governance. Governance alone has been cited, though. Only governance alone is the Masulis and Reza. Political motives alone, okay, the one who did political motives alone is Lee et al. Institutional pressures alone was done by this. This is high level of citation, where you have read the work and you know clearly, and so we are picking them one by one. Please, as I answer your question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So just from the first paragraph, this is introductional. The first paragraph alone, count how many citations are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8 citations in just almost 6 lines or so. 7 lines, 8 lines. So my point I'm saying is that do not be scared. Great authors decide. The rest continues, on and on. Now, even though it's a very quantitative work, like I said, okay, there's a lot of writing that has been pushed to the referencing. Where is the referencing? Oh, yeah. So you can see that now coming back to the referencing, watch it. You can see that the referencing have all been, because we use the software has indented all of them. It's indented, the second lines, all of them nicely. And you can see that the author, the year, the title, and the journals have all been nicely italicized. And the DOI numbers are following. The DOI, the DOI, the DOI, the DOI, the DOI. All of them are nicely following, nicely, beautiful. If you have these kind of referencing approaches, you are on the fly. You are on the fly. You are on the move. You are showing really the leader that you know the stuff. You are made of the right stuff that you want to do. And that is just an example of what I mean. Now, Now, let me take you back and then we conclude. So, ladies and gentlemen, everything we have done today, you get some of the information in the book by Boateng. The photos that we showed, we got some of them from Getty Images. We cited them. And then you can also get some from Saunders' book. This is not exhaustive, what we have done here. Remember, literature review can take some time, so it's always good that you are the least time you get. Sometimes when you're in a car or train, you are reading your document and synthesizing ideas. Sometimes before you go to bed, you start reading, then you fall asleep. Then your subconscious mind will start working on the synthesis for you that you can get. It's something you got to start early so that you can end it. That brings us to the end of the entire Kabuda.